Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Millennials in Charge, where we unpack the adult experience one honest conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lex the Millennial, and today we're talking money moves. I want to get into the real about debt, credit, investing, and financial planning because some of us never discussed money with our parents. And how are we supposed to thrive financially if no one taught us the basics? Let's be real. Millennials got hit with student loan debt, two recessions, a pandemic, and rising living costs. And now we're dealing with egg inflation and Temu tariffs. Managing money in this economy isn't just about being smart, it's about being strategic. So let's discuss a little bit about credit. A lot of people hear the word credit and they just think of credit cards, or maybe the score that they checked 2 years ago and never looked again at it. Let me be the first to tell you that credit is basically your financial reputation. Your credit is a record of how well you manage money. It can tell lenders, landlords, and even future employers if they can trust you financially. Your credit score consists of three digits, typically between the range of 300 and 850. It's like your money GPA, if you will. The higher it is, the more doors open and the less interest you will pay when borrowing money. So I know you're probably saying, okay, but why does my credit matter? Well, your credit matters because it shows up just about everywhere. I mean, if you want to rent an apartment, they'll probably check your credit. If you need a car loan or a home loan, the interest rate is going to depend on your credit. When you apply to certain jobs, they may actually look at your credit. Even with setting up utility bills or like getting a phone plan, they probably checked your credit. And those things are harder to get with bad credit. The bottom line is good credit gives you options. And bad credit, it doesn't mean you failed, but it does mean that you have room to grow. Tips to build or rebuild your credit. Number one is paying your bills on time. That consists of 35% of your score is your payment history and if you pay your bills on time. Number two is your credit card utilization. If you have credit cards, you want to keep each balance under 30% of your total. So, an example, if you have $1,000 limit, you want to keep that usage under 30% of your thousand, which would be $300. So you don't want to put more than $300 on your credit card each month by the end of the billing cycle. So I didn't get my first credit card until after I graduated college, and it was actually through my bank. Um, Today I have several credit cards, and I only use two. And the reason why I use two of them consistently is because I do that for the rewards. So one of my credit cards is like if I do my streaming services on it, my TV or my internet, if I charge that monthly on it, they give me like a percentage back. So I do that for the cashback rewards. And then I have another card that, oh, if I use it for gas and groceries and different things, it gives me a certain percentage back, cashback that I actually use on the card. Now, the best way to use your credit cards is to, if you're going to use them or even get close to the limit, make sure that you can pay it off the very next month before the bill is due. So typically on your credit card, you have a payment due date and then you have a statement date. So your statement date is going to be when the credit card company takes a snapshot of your statement and says, okay, you had $1,000 limit, you still have $300 left to pay. So now you're at 30% utilization, and they're going to report that to the credit bureaus. Now, for example, my credit card is due on the 6th of each month. My statement closes by the 9th. So I always make sure that I've made at least a minimum payment by the statement due date. But on that 9th, I try to make sure that it's paid off before the ninth, so that once they take a screenshot and they say, okay, how much does she owe? It's zero. And then they'll report it to my credit bureau and they say, oh, her utilization on this card is zero. Now, in turn, another way that I can bounce back and forth with that is some months I might leave like, let's say, $100 on there, and that's so when they take the snapshot it shows, oh, she used it. And then when I pay it the following month, which might drop my score like 2 points or something, because it might say, oh well, you know, your balance increased by $100. Fine. So then the next month I'll pay it off. And then when they take that snapshot on the ninth again, it says, oh, your balance decreased from $100 to $0. By that point, now my score has gone up because they're like, okay, she's paid off her debt, it decreased, and the payment was on time. So now we're going to give her a little bit more points on her credit score. With that being said, another tip for repairing your credit, you don't want to close old accounts. Your oldest accounts, you want to try to keep them open if you can help it. If you're also trying to build credit and you don't have any, you might want to start with a secure credit card, specifically when you're starting from scratch, because secure credit cards are more so when you put up your $300. It's not them loaning you their money. You put up your own $300 and you use the card and then you pay it off, and they'll report that to the credit bureaus and help you build some credit. So those are a few ways. I mean, make sure you're paying your bills on time. Make sure you keep your utilization under 30%. Don't close your old accounts if you can help it. One thing I did do, like I had a car that I financed before and I ended up paying it off. But that didn't hurt my credit because it wasn't a credit card, it was a auto loan, and it just kind of said, oh yeah, your balance went from $5,000 to zero, which helped boost my score, but that was now one less account that I had to go towards my score. But that one was okay. Now, we all know there's different types of debt, right? So you got student loans, you got credit cards, you got car loans, you got personal loans, you got home loans. And I think you just have to be strategic in the way that you try to repay these different forms of debt. You could use a snowball method. Now, the snowball method is where you pay off the smallest balance that you have first, kind of like for motivation. So, like, with my car, it was the $5,000 car that I probably threw like $1,000 each month at and paid it off in 5 months. Now, the other repayment method you can use is called the avalanche method, which is where you pay off the highest interest rates first so that you save more money. With me, I bought my house in 2020, so uh, I have a pretty good interest rate on my house. What I try to do is once a year, I try to make an extra principal payment, which will help drop down my total number of payments on my loan. And eventually, I'll end up paying less interest over time. So, let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts of debt, right? You do want to make your minimum payments on time. If your minimum payment is $25 and that's all you have, sure, make sure you pay the $25. If you have more to give, then you have more to give. But don't give $100 here and then next month don't have the $25 minimum payment. Okay, you don't want to ignore creditors. um you should like try to communicate with them and ask for hardship plans, specifically for student loans. I'm not necessarily talking about collections. I won't get into that today, because we're just talking about some of the basics here. And you do want to consolidate loans if it will give you a lower interest rate overall. So, like, if you have student loans and let's say they're all they have interest rates over 10%, you might want to consider consolidating or refinancing those loans. So then that way you might pay 6% for one new loan. And essentially what refinancing does, or consolidation does, is whoever you refinance with or consolidate with, they pay off your bill or your loans for you, and then now you owe them. I want us to remember that, you're not a failure because you're in debt. Most millennials are in debt. The difference is whether you're managing it or it's managing you. And I mean, them student loans, y'all, my favorite saying is they need to get it back in blood. But, I know recently. Some people have gone into default um, because loans just started back up. So just make sure you guys are like going on the website and checking when your due date is, when your payments are supposed to start. And that was probably if you were in default or in repayment, but like look it up, check, like verify that. Make sure you know when your due date is, when you're starting to pay. If you can't pay it, call and try to see if they'll work with you and get on the payment plan because it's vicious out here. And I don't want y'all to run y'all credit by dealing with these student loans. That being said, we need to invest our money. I mean, your money needs to make money for you, right? I want you to realize that investing is not just for wealthy people. It's how people build wealth. You can start with um, low risk and beginner friendly tools. There's apps like Fidelity, Vanguard, or Acorn or Robinhood. You can use those. Make sure if you have a job and your job matches your 401k plan, make sure that you put in something so that they can begin to match you. If it's a 6% match, if you have the money and the wiggle room in your budget to do 6%, do the 6% so that they do the 6% and you're saving 12%. If you don't have the wiggle room to do 6%, do 3% or whatever you can do, but do some percentage so that they will match your money because that's free money you're leaving on the table if you don't participate in your 401k. Another thing that I just learned recently is some jobs or some employers allow you to have a Roth. Okay. And that's the better option because Roth IRA and Roth 401k are typically like tax-free growth. And even my financial advisor is like, they drill and drill and drill about us putting money into our Roth IRA because it's tax free. You can allow your money to grow and invest it. The thing with investing is that you don't want to invest if you need your money in like a year or three. You can. Some people do make good investments and can do short sales and stuff like that. I typically look at investing long term. Me and my husband typically look at investing long term, but if you were lucky enough to get in on, Bitcoin when it was low and then it spiked and then you sold it, okay, cool. But a lot of us didn't. And if you didn't, then you might want to look at some longer term options. Indexed funds are good for long term and also for like low maintenance investing. I think you have to realize you can't try to time the market. You don't know what's gonna pop. Sometimes you do. I do have some friends who like follow it closely and they know they're like, oh no, I can tell like this is gonna pop. But it's not a guarantee, it's a risk. And investing can be risky depending on how aggressive or conservative you invest. So just be mindful of that. Time in the market is what really matters. So, again, if you're going to need your money within the next year to 3 years, you might want to put that money somewhere else in the sense of like maybe a high yield savings account. One of my friends from college, she always posts on her story. She's like, "Y'all need to get high yield savings account. Y'all need to get high yield savings account. Y'all leaving money on the table." I always laugh. I'm like, "Yep, we do need to get them." And I mean, it's true. If you're saving your money in a savings account and it's not building any interest, it's not growing at all, you should put it in a high yield savings account and you might get like, depending on our percentage, maybe like $300 back from that year, but that's $300 more than just your money sitting there without growing. So look into high yield savings accounts. And just remember, like, you don't have to be an expert. You can always look it up. Go on YouTube University if you need more information, but you just have to start. Like, you just have to start. You don't have to be the best person, but just start. Sign up for something. I remember, I think when I first started investing, I signed up for a stash, but now, like, that we have financial advisors and stuff, it's a little bit different. But when I first started investing on my own, I was using like Stash and it was another app. And I know my husband was using like Robinhood. So those are still good apps to start somewhere in investing. It's also good to try to be consistent with your investing. So even if it's only $25 a month, just be consistent in that investing, even if that's what you're putting into your 401k or if that's what you're putting into your Roth IRA, you're putting $25 every month, just be consistent because you'll see that growth. And before you know it, you have a bunch of money in there just off your $25. We have to realize that the best time to invest was yesterday, but the second best time is today. So look into your investing options, and it's as simple as at least getting your 401k matched. And again, check and see if your job offers Roth 401k, and maybe choose that plan when you're signing up, or switch over to it when those enrollments and stuff change. Let's think big picture. So financial planning is really important. Like I said, some of us didn't talk to our parents about money. I was fortunate enough to talk to my parents about money because both of my parents are entrepreneurs and they dealt in cash. So, my parents would hand me some money and they're like, count this money. And then they're like, okay, I have these bills. How much can I pay on each with this amount of money? And then how much do I have left over for leisure? And in their own way, that was their way of teaching me budgeting. Like I learned to write a check and a money order and all that stuff when I was like 14 years old, because my mom specifically, she taught me that. She was like, you're gonna do it. And I take that for granted because I didn't know everyone's parents didn't sit them down and teach them how to fill out a check or a money order and how to budget out their bills. Everyone didn't learn that. They weren't fortunate enough. But even if you're now an adult and figuring it out, it's not too late to start implementing better financial planning strategies in your life. Budgeting without restriction is a no-go. You kind of need to give every dollar you have a job. Know where it goes. There's apps like Mint, YNAB, every dollar, or my personal favorite, I like to just use like a Google spreadsheet or Microsoft spreadsheet to keep our budget. And so I just go through and I put, what we bring in, go through all the bills. I have it separate out. I think one of the important things with your budget is having a savings built into that, because the goal is to have an emergency fund of like 3 to 6 months of expenses. Now, I understand some people live paycheck to paycheck and that's hard to do. But if you do that, then I would suggest like possibly putting, even if it's like $20 a month or whatever you can afford to put away. If you have a vice, then maybe cut back on that vice and even budget that. How much can I spend on a vice? If brunch is your thing, whatever your vice is, if you like to go brunching, don't go brunching every week, or maybe you can, but again, limit yourself. What's your allotment for brunch? What's your allotment for gas, for groceries? Groceries is high, so make sure y'all check that grocery number. Definitely account for that. You're going out, like how much do you spend on leisure? Account for the money going to your investments and stuff like that. Some of y'all might need to check on how many apps you have, and try to cut some of those back, because sometimes you have a bunch of apps, either you're not using them, or you don't know that you're even paying for them. And I've heard like commercials for like Rocket Mortgage or whatever. Is it Rocket? It's Rocket Money. I've heard commercials for Rocket Money, and I think like they can like search all the apps you have and make sure you're not paying all willy-nilly. But that can happen if you don't have a budget and know where all your dollars are going. So within your budget, for me, tithing to my local church is very important to my budget. We pay our tithes before we pay any of our bills. And some people might find that odd or crazy, but I'm going to leave it very short and sweet. I've seen my life without tithing, and I've seen my life with it. And my life looks completely different when I tithe and give my 10% to my local church versus not. I think I say our life, me and my husband, I think our budget then stays in excess when we're tithing versus when we're not tithing, it's not as much access or extra, means of income. So I think that's very important. Do your own research on tithing and how you feel about it, but I just wanted to put that out there because I feel like that's very important for me, and I find it helps balance my financial planning and my financial life and stability. Sometimes we do this thing called sinking funds, which is where we save in advance for like big things. So like your car repairs, your trips, your holidays. You kind of like put that money aside. So you can also like incorporate that into your budget when you're financial planning. And I would say make sure you revisit your budget often, especially like if you get a new expense or maybe you drop a new expense because then maybe you can actually start saving if you weren't able to save. Just make sure you revisit your budget, maybe even monthly if you can. You just want to make sure that you're accurately accounting for those dollars and you're not working off of something that's super old and outdated, and maybe you make more money so you're not accounting for that, and if you start making more money and you don't account for that, then you're probably just going to spend more money and not even realize it. So it's very important that you like look and make sure you keep reevaluating your budget, maybe even monthly. Just take a look at it, make sure nothing's changed, and just keep it moving. If it's fine, if not, then just check it or change it. Planning for future goals like home ownership, kids, retirement, it's just very important. I think a lot of us are striving to leave generational wealth. We want to leave our kids something. We want to own homes or multiple homes. We want to um, give our kids and our grandkids like the things we didn't have. So financial planning is a big part of that. I think once you get to the point where you are financially able, getting a financial advisor or a certified financial planner is valuable. There's also, you can probably look into actually free community resources. Your community might have like someone who is willing to evaluate your financial future for you and break it down for you and help. There's so many great programs out there. I mean, even for like home buyers, there's when you're looking into buying a home, make sure that you look into like first time home buyer programs and initiatives because they'll give you like closing cost money and different things. There's a program called NACA, NACA, which like will help with you buying down your interest rate, is what they say. I've attended like the workshop, and uh NACA is very involved. They kind of make you budget. If you never budgeted before, they make you budget, and then they do make you account for every single dollar that's coming in and out of your account over the months that you're trying to get you pre-approved for a loan. And you have to justify why you spent this money, where did it go? Um, and it's just to like keep you on track, and they kind of help you build a budget if you've never had one. I didn't end up going the NACA route with my husband just because we used like a first time home buyers program, and we had a great uh realtor, so it all like worked out for us and we didn't need to go through that program. But there are tons of programs out there, so whatever city you're in, state, country, just look into the resources that are around you because there's probably something free out there, and it's probably something that can help you reach some of those financial goals that you have. So, all in all, I mean, financial freedom is the goal, financial stability is the goal. I do understand that financial freedom is not a one size fit all journey, but it is possible. You don't have to have it all figured out today. You can start small, stay consistent, and just give yourself grace along the way. I mean, you have to start somewhere. If you don't start somewhere, then again, we want to make progress. And if you don't even move your feet, then you won't move forward. So we just want to get ourselves unstuck, and start making those money moves and make sure that we are actually paying attention to our financial future and our financial planning, and make sure that we're budgeting if we can. And I think one last thing that I forgot to mention, but I wanted to mention it to you guys. Make sure that you are like checking your credit on your own. Now, I know some people don't like Credit Karma. I personally enjoy Credit Karma just because, yes, it might be lower in other places, but I mean, if you have a high score on Credit Karma, you probably still have a relatively high score. So don't be deterred by that. But if Credit Karma don't work for you, find a different credit credit monitoring system that you can use, and be aware of what's on your credit. Don't be afraid to dispute things on your credit, and don't be afraid to just make sure that you're cognizant of what's on there and how you can get it off. And if you need to snowball, pay your debt, or avalanche pay your debt, and just get the ball rolling, because it's not out of your reach. It's not impossible for you to pay off your debt. It's not impossible for you to reach financial freedom. And it's not impossible for you to reach your financial goals. It's not impossible. You just have to start somewhere. You just have to do it and just be consistent. Consistency, again, is key in a lot of things in your life. So just be consistent. Be consistent. So I'd like to thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Millennials in Charge. It's the not so fun stuff this week, but that's okay. I still think it's valuable because, again, financial guidance is not something all of us was fortunate enough to receive growing up, but here we are now. We're the new adults and we're just trying to figure this thing out. So, again, don't be afraid to use YouTube University. Don't be afraid to talk to a financial advisor, even if you just want to get a consultation. Don't be afraid to ask your friends. Listen, don't be afraid to ask me because although I'm no expert, like I do have excellent credit and I've kind of learned how to work in and out of that credit system. So, if you want to talk about it, DM me. If you have a tip on, how to maintain credit, get out of debt, invest, financial plan, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you for just tuning in to Millennials in Charge. You can be anywhere else, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. And don't forget to, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, follow wherever you're getting it from. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to follow. Don't forget to leave those comments on Spotify. If you're on the same on Apple Podcasts, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, turn your notifications on so you know when I'm dropping a new episode next week. Again, every Wednesday at 6 a.m. It's me and you guys. So we're all just trying to grow, and the goal is to do it together. So I'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to catch Millennials in Charge every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern. You can tune in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.